Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money and the Law, My FM 101.3, and of course, Holliston Cable Access TV, the Holliston Hub. Tom's here. Tom is from Holliston Cable Access TV. So we're going to introduce Tom first because Tom doesn't, he's the first one here.
Most important guy in the room.
He's the first guy here. He's the last one to leave, right?
Well, you're the last guy here.
I'm the last guy here and the first one to leave.
Yep.
Right. Last in, first out.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tom is like the old recon element, first in, last out.
Yep.
So Tom, welcome aboard. Because I wanted to make sure that you're happy and you understand that we're happy that you're here.
He's happy.
Who else is here? You're here.
I'm here. Where else would I be? Where else would I be?
Those of you who can't see who I'm pointing to, it's the one and only Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group.
Here.
It's almost like you ever see those talk shows when they have the guests come in and you're almost like it's like if it's like the Ryan Seacrest and Kelly, right?
Yeah.
And they bring and it's like one of them isn't there. It's like you're a little. It's different. You're let down a little bit.
You are, but it's funny when you said I talk about the guest and the host who's coming in, and I'm always drawn to the Seinfeld episode where he takes the Merv Griffin set and he puts it in his apartment. He's sitting there, he's all dressed up. He announces them coming in, and they come in old school, like they're coming to Johnny Carson. That come rolling in, the music's playing. That's so great.
For anybody who is listening to this show right now, because Tom doesn't know what Merv Griffin is, right? No, you have no clue. Merv Griffin, he was like the pioneer of talk shows.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of those guys.
Right.
Remember this?
Right.
Him, Mike Douglas.
Mike Douglas, the
Remember
Mike Douglas
great
show.
Mike Douglas,
right?
yes.
And this is, because back in the day, we had, 4 channels, right?
Oh, that's right.
If you were lucky, right? Because
Yeah.
one of them was a local channel, and you had to, wiggle you had to do some of the antenna. Your old man be like, no, stand right there, right?
Yep, that's right.
But there was 3 networks,
Yep.
and you watched what was on TV.
You
and
watch what they told you to watch.
Yeah, if it
No
was if it was like during the day and you were home sick from something, there was no movies, there was no VCRs.
Do you remember that? Remember being home sick during the day?
You're
like, I get tuberculosis, I'd rather be in school.
Right.
There isn't a blessed thing on TV to watch.
You're watching I watch soap operas with
Terrible
my mother.
soap opera, yes.
Ryan's Hope. Let's watch Ryan's Hope, right?
Yes.
Classic, right? And this is even before when soap operas started to figure it out.
General Hospital.
Right.
Like a little,
there wasn't anything suggestive about them, right? Because it was daytime TV, this was even before, every soap opera has a guy with an eye patch, right?
Yeah.
Your class. This was even before then.
And it just looked remember the way they recorded it was different. It looked like
it was a whole movie.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. And there's all this walking around, and these are people that are in the industry for 35 years.
Oh yeah.
Like this guy won 11 daytime Emmys. I'm like, they give those out for what in God's name? You're sitting there watching those.
He goes out and
they were on one after the other after the other.
And they were all in New York, right? They were all based out of New York. And this is back when New York was it wasn't like it is now. You go into back in Manhattan in the 1970s, it was this doesn't feel so good.
As they were struggling with bankruptcy.
Can we go somewhere else?
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
But it was and so then when a talk show came on, like the Mike Douglas show or the Merv Griffin show, you're like, finally something that I can understand, right?
Something.
I'm 11 years old.
That's right. I don't want to watch whatever the name.
My God, is that Barbara Streisand? I think I've seen her in something. Yeah.
Did she sing or something? Yeah, that's right. She might even sing on the show.
So anyway, we digress.
Yeah, we digress. But anyway, here we are. Here we are.
And here we are. My
Your
whole
daytime radio soap opera.
My whole point of this was that people must be excited that you have both of the hosts here, Jay Marsden and John Droynan, when there's no substitute.
As opposed to when Mike Douglas goes on vacation, they're going to bring somebody in to do the show on top of it.
Some rando, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but the thing is, which has always been since we started, is there are no substitutes.
No, there are no. That's right.
It was kind of
it's either us or nobody.
For the record, it's one of those unwritten rules that we've kind of we've established this because Probably because it was built into our contract that since we aren't actually getting paid to do this.
No, I think the real reason is what we're both afraid of is if we bring in a substitute, we're going to love the substitute so much more than we love each other, and that's it. We're both out. So it's like don't take a
second date to the prom.
That's right. Don't take a day off at the baseball team, otherwise you might not see the game.
That's right. Don't take the day off because the guy who comes in and starts pitching for you.
Yep, that's right.
Yep, so here we are. So Money in the Law, as you know, just a little refresher, what Money in the Law does is we talk about anything that has to do with the law, like
Correct.
Particularly like the estate planning side of law, the elder planning side of law. So kind of the law that applies to most of you non-criminals out there.
That's correct.
We sometimes will address criminal law in a jesty, kind of,
Hey, look,
but this isn't.
There's a fair amount of criminality in the estate world,
if-
in the trust world. There's always somebody wandering off with a bag of money.
But if you're interested in criminal law, there's plenty of more interesting TV shows that you can watch
Yes.
other than Money in the Law. Although you might think Money in the Law, like with Law and Order, it's all kind of the same thing. But
it's got the same feel.
We don't deal so much with the criminal law.
Dick
And then-
Wolf, give us a call.
And then the other part is the money part, which is everybody loves talking about money, and that's why they call it money, because everybody loves money.
Sure.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that's why they
And
call it money.
But
That's
we're
right.
here to tell you, and we've said this 1 trillion times on the show, money's not going to make you happy. Now, this show could make you happy, and it has money in the title, but money's not going to make you happy. Is it going to give you more? Is it going to give you more options? Potentially, right?
I've used money to make myself pretty happy.
Yeah, but you, again, stop right now, because you know what?
saying.
You could have, could your career path have taken you a different way where you could potentially have made more money? Yes or no?
Yes.
The answer is yes. And why didn't you do that? Because it wasn't going to make, I'll answer it for you, because it wasn't going to make you happy. Because you're happier now.
All right, we'll talk about that later. That's a different animal.
So,
That's an off-camera answer.
we're going to have to do some counseling on this. All right, so speaking of money, what's new with you?
How much you need it and all that other good stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of money, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about it was an article that Jay found, I believe, in one of his publications, his financial publications, about some of the sobering things, some sobering facts about retirement.
That's
planning.
right. It was retirement readiness is what it was all about,
yeah.
and the lack thereof, I believe. And so there were some things that we wanted to highlight for folks who are looking down that glide path, trying to figure out, am I ready? Am I not ready? What issues are out there that I need to worry about?
So the good news is that if you're a loyal fan of Money in the Law and you've been watching or listening for however 6 months, 6 years, who knows,
North of a
then
decade.
then you've studied for this quiz. All
Yes.
of this is all going to be review, and you're going to be like, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I'm not in that. I'm glad I'm not one of those people. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Now, if you're new, then you may learn some. But you know what? There's always time. There's always time to change your ways and become financially
Astute?
financially stable,
Yep.
financially smart, financially
Savvy?
financially savvy. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do all that.
Do you have opening day tickets tomorrow?
I do not have opening day tickets. No. Are you going? Are you? You're saying it like it was kind of like
No,
one
like I
of
was
those
leading
loaded
you up,
questions.
like,
Yeah.
no,
like,
no,
guess who does?
No, I'm just thinking because Ray come rolling in here all dressed up like he's ready to hit the field.
Yeah.
And it reminded me that tomorrow's opening day, and I just didn't know if that was something that was on your list of things to do. Have you ever been to opening day?
As a matter of fact, I have.
Of course you have.
As a matter of fact,
Of course you
that's you know what, and
have.
I'll tease that for the break, because I want to tell that story. It's the reason. So for any of you who don't know, I'm originally from New York. I'm a native New Yorker.
Yes,
I
you
was
are.
born and grew up in the greater tri-state area. We lived in New York, then we moved to Connecticut. But I grew up a New York baseball fan.
Sure,
I grew up.
of
I
course.
mean, the New
You
York
had to
Yankees.
get your options.
And this is back in the day. So I'll tell that story.
All right.
That's not a bad radio story.
You like
It
that?
may
Well, it's
take
springtime.
45 minutes.
Springtime, baby. Come
That's
on, it's
right,
opening
that's right.
day.
So I
It's,
gotta-
that's
But it's a great lead in for like to get you pumped up for, because that opening day, when I went to opening day, so it was opening day 1994, it made me a believer not only in the Red Sox,
Sure.
but in baseball itself.
and this is a great time to be a Boston sports fan. There's a lot going on. You get opening day, you get the marathon coming up. Celtics are playing really well. Bruins are playing lights out. I mean, there's a lot going on. This is a good time.
I mean, well, so yeah, so we'll get into all that, maybe some money stuff, but finally we're
Maybe
going to
some
have
law stuff.
money in the law. Sports Talk is brought to you today.
Just throw it all in there. It's a kitchen sink. It's a hodgepodge.
Yeah, it's a hodgepodge. I love sports. I've been wanting to do Sports Talk for 12 years. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll tell some sports stories. Then we're going to talk about some money and some law stuff as well. All right,
Tell them who they're listening to.
they're listening to My FM 101.3.
Love it.
They're watching Holliston Cable Access TV, the Holliston Hub, and everybody right now is all part of Money and Law. We'll be right back.
And you're back, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Tom's here. Ray was in and out quick, getting us all set up.
Going to
and
the
then he's out.
Woos,
He's
right?
going to Woo Sox. Got media day over there. We were just chit-chatting about opening day at Fenway tomorrow, and we're here to talk about retirement readiness. based off of an article that I read that was just highlighting the fact that these are the pitfalls, these are the challenges, and these are the traps for the unwary.
And everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah, if you're worried about your retirement readiness. We bring this up a lot because it's easy to talk about the bank issue. It's easy to talk about the market. It's easy to talk about those very micro issues. But I think sometimes talking about those things on a macro level takes a little bit of the pressure off. Everybody gets caught up in the numbers, right? Gets caught up in the numbers as opposed to just the idea
Right,
of,
they get like, what's my number? Like, how much?
right.
How much do I need? You tell me what's the number I
Yep.
have.
Like there's almost like if you get to this number, whatever that number, if you get to $1 million, your worries have all gone away.
Yeah.
Everything's a walk in the park. You won the game. Blah blah blah. And that may be the case. There's so many factors that factor into that. But sometimes we like to talk about the macro piece of it because that's the fun part of it. We've talked about this in the show a million times. It's like, look, forget the numbers are important. I'm not saying the numbers are not important, but part of that numbers conversation and analysis needs to be, what does our retirement look like?
Yep.
Just forget the numbers. What are we living in this house or are we living in another house? We live in someplace cold, we live in someplace warm. We live in someplace both? I don't know. Let's kind of figure that whole thing out. Let's kind of play around with it and see what the story is and talk it through.
And see what it is and by talking it through, because that's the thing, you may not know what that picture looks like. We said this before. You may not know kind of exactly what my in my mind, it's kind of a fuzzy picture. So by kind of talking it through and kind of wargaming it out to say, okay, well, most likely do we see ourselves staying in this house? Do we see ourselves staying in this area? And the answer could be maybe, but the answer also could be maybe not, because if we have 2 kids and both of our kids move to South Carolina, then we're like, well, we're up here, they're down there. What are we doing, right?
Are we moving? Are we not moving?
Yeah.
I mean, our contemporaries, a substantial number of our contemporaries have made the move to the Cape full time.
Mm-hmm.
They lived here. They were doing their thing. This is where all roads led to Holliston. And then all of a sudden, one day, you look around and the bedrooms are all empty.
And they're gone.
And you say to yourself, all right, well, is this the place for us? Does this need to be the place for us? Are we going to stay here? Or are we done doing? And again, you could talk about it conceptually, but you don't know what it's going to feel like until it actually happens. And it could be a conversation. Again, we're just talking concepts. We're talking about just think it through. Just kind of prepare yourself for some of these changes that are coming along.
But you brought up a good point. You brought up about the numbers. Is that so? You get kind of hung up on the numbers, but the numbers are going to be driven kind of by that decision, right?
Yeah.
And so, take a step back, and if you're 55 years old and you're like, I don't really know where I'm going to end up. I don't really know kind of exactly what my retirement. I have some ideas. I know what I'd like to do, right? I know if I really want to have a vacation place or I want to have a timeshare, I want to spend time at a place, but I know that I'm probably not going to live there year round, most likely because my kids aren't going to live in Key West, right? So I'm gonna. I know that that's part of it. That's a piece of it. So. But I don't know the other part, and that's okay, because we always say, I don't know is an answer, but I'm going to build that kind of, I'm going to drive that plan. My glide path is going to take me in such a direction where I'll be able to kind of, if I decide to stay here, great. If I decide if I need to move to relocate to a different place, but still have like a place in the South, then I'll be able to do that, right? So the numbers are going to kind of be driven by those decisions.
Right. That's right. Your conceptual plan of what your retirement looks like then needs to match up with those numbers, and then those two plans have to come together. And you can make a whole bunch of assumptions around exactly what you just talked about, which is if we're going to try to keep 2 places, we're going to be prepared to pay 2 sets of property taxes, 2 sets of utility bills, 2 sets of insurance bills. Does that work for us? Can we do it? Or if we change the analysis, if we change the concepts, does it get exponentially better? And it might. It very well might.
It could, and so the article that we're going to talk about today is like it's kind of it asks some of the questions, it kind of shows some of the things, and these are things that are independent of no matter what direction you go.
Right.
These are all kind of smart things that you need to take into consideration. But before we start that, let me tell you my opening day story.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. So opening day. So back in the day, as you know, back in the day when I was still part of the United States military, and one of the great things that Fenway Park used to do, and this is again pre Pedro. This was like long before the Red Sox had won a World Series. This was they allowed us to go in for $3. It was a $3 standing room only ticket. So I was working right downtown. So and I was a big baseball fan. Like I said, I grew up a Yankee fan, so I'm a Yankee fan. And as a Yankee fan, for all you Red Sox fans, I hate to be many of you younger people don't realize this because everybody's like, oh, we hate the Yankees. The Yankee fans didn't hate the Red Sox. We never did. Because you know why? The Red Sox always choked.
Right.
1986, right? 1986. Mookie Wilson hits a ground ball, goes through Bill Buckner's legs, and the Red Sox, who had that game won, who had that World Series won right there, they give it up and they end up losing that World Series to the New York Mets.
There's some debate around whether they had it won, but whatever.
No, they had that. If they won that game, they won the World Series.
They won the game, but that game wasn't locked up at that point. There was still some. We'll talk about this later. It's another off.
We don't need to talk about it later because, unfortunately, some people have things to do. Yeah. Some people don't. Like me, right. I watched it the other day.
All right.
Anyway, but here's my point. So I grew up a Yankee fan, but I love baseball, and I loved the fact that now I got to go to Fenway Park, which is like this historic place.
Yeah.
So I go. So it's opening day, and again, I'm a Yankee fan, but I like I don't hate the Red Sox. I love baseball. So I go in and I'm by myself, right? So because you go in for 3 bucks, and then back in those days, the seats didn't fill up, right? So all those corporate like box seats,
you move around.
You could go wherever you want. You could sit wherever you wanted to, and then if somebody you were in their seat, they just said you're in my seat, and you're like, oh, excuse me, and then you move back, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and nobody cared back now. I think ever since like kind of they got special and they sold out all the season tickets. So I'm in, and they're playing against the Seattle Mariners, and the significance of the Seattle Mariners was that they were coached by one of my Yankee heroes, Lou Piniella, like one of the great Lou Piniella, who was part of those 1970s World Series champion Yankees. They had arguably one of the greatest players of all time, Ken Griffey Jr. was playing for Seattle, and the pitching on opening day it was none other than Hall of Famer Randy Johnson, right? So I'm getting to see Randy Johnson pitch. I'm getting to see Ken Griffey Jr. play. I'm seeing Lou Piniella manage, and I'm sitting 6 rows behind the Mariners bench. And I'm like, right, and it's a beautiful sun, just like it is today, beautiful sunny day. So I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. And of course, when I go there, I'm quiet and shy. Actually, no, I'm not. So I make friends with all the people that are around me. Because everybody wants to talk baseball. It's opening day. So by the 3rd inning, I'm friends with everybody in my section.
General vicinity. Yeah.
in my section. So we're having a good time. So all I wanted to see was this. I had some stipulations. I wanted to see Ken Griffey Jr. hit a home run. I wanted to see Randy Johnson pitch and pitch well.
Yeah.
I wanted to see maybe Ken Griffey Jr. make a nice play in the field, but I wanted the Red Sox to win because then everybody would be happy, right?
Everybody wins.
So the game progresses. Junior hits a home run, makes it over the shoulder catch and field. Randy Johnson strikes out 16 Red Sox through 7 innings. And of course, it's opening day, so of course Lou Piniella's like, all right, we're done. The Mariners are up 6-1, right? They take Randy Johnson out. I mean, it was crazy. It was like one of the best pitching performances I've ever seen. They take him out like, okay, time for you to come out because it's, we got a long season to go. And then they bring in, for those Red Sox historians, the great Heathcliff Slocum. Do you remember Heathcliff Slocum?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Heathcliff Slocum came in to pitch for the Mariners the year before he was playing for the Red Sox. So and the Red Sox traded him, and he was a bum with the Red Sox, right? Everybody's like, oh, Slocum, right? They're so glad to get rid of him. They trade Heathcliff Slocum. So he's now pitching for the mop-up duty, right? In the bottom of the 8th inning. Slocum gives up 5 runs, ties the game. The game is tied 6-6 going into the bottom of the 9th. The Red Sox are up. They load the bases. Who's up? None other than the great Mo Vaughn.
Of course,
Mo Vaughn, one of the, like the kind of the pre-Pedro. He was the face of the Red Sox. Mo Vaughn proceeds to hit a walk-off grand slam home run. Opening day, April 17th or April 1st or whatever it was. Grand slam walk-off home run. And again, now I'm very close friends because we watched the Red Sox come back. Yeah. You would have thought, and at that point, like time stops for me. You would have thought that they won Game 7 of the World Series. Yeah. And it was there, and this is 1994. Remember, pre-World Series. So I'm watching, and everybody's hugging each other and kissing, and it's the greatest thing ever. Oh my God! Yeah. And tears are streaming down these people's faces. Right? They're like, oh my God, they're so sad. Blah blah blah. They're like, this is the greatest thing ever. And at that point, I decided, because I knew we weren't leaving Boston. My wife was here. I knew we weren't leaving the Boston area. At that point, I said, you know what? I'm going to convert to a Red Sox fan. I'm going to, because you know why? Because someday in our lifetime they're going to win a World Series, and I can't be on the outside of that. Not after seeing this. Not after seeing it. It was pathetic.
Passion and the emotion.
It was so pathetic, but it was great. And that made me believe in baseball. That's my opening day story.
All right. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see how your retirement readiness is going, so you can go to more Red Sox games.
So I can go to, and this, I should have, right? Back then, I should have bought some season tickets. They were still available.
Yes, they were.
They're coming back around, though, kind of the way, the way baseball's
Pick
going
up a
now.
bleacher package. Should be
Yeah,
all right.
you probably
Be all right.
could.
Yep. All right. So there were 10 things that we're going to talk about that were part of the retirement readiness study that was done by a company that I used to work for, small mutual fund company in downtown Boston. I think they're still there.
I've heard of them. Yeah,
They've been around for a while.
I think they dabble in retirement plans.
Yep, they're known for a couple of. There's some popular mutual funds, I believe. So the number one issue that they talked about was approximately 1 in 3 Americans are in the retirement preparedness red zone.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
What that means is that they must make significant adjustments to their current spending and investing behaviors in order to avoid a sharp drop in lifestyle.
Yeah, and for those of you who are thinking that this is a very complicated mathematical formula, it's not.
Yep.
And so let me be the first to tell you that it's all about this is how much you make, and this is how much you spend.
Oh, it's just math.
And I mean, but it's not even tricky math. It's
No,
not even
no,
fuzzy
it's not.
math,
No.
right? So I make this much, and I spend this much. And if I make more than I spend, then I'm doing well, right?
Yeah.
And then and by that means I'm going to have a surplus. I'm going to have something left over, right? So what have we said time and time again? Oh, like we always tell our clients, when in doubt, just save.
Yep.
When in doubt, save when
Put
you
it
can.
somewhere. Put it somewhere.
And not at the expense of not doing anything, not at the expense of not helping your kids get through college, not at the expense of living in a place that is not suitable for you if it's too small or whatever. Like don't save just to save to be able to put yourself in a hardship.
No, but think about this we're talking about, we started this off by talking about macro, micro. Think about this on a macro level. We're talking about it right now. And then you bring it down to a monthly, to your monthly level, right? And retirement is one big, gigantic monthly balance sheet, right? And so if you, this month, knew that your expenses far and away outpaced your income, you would make adjustments, right? You would decide to do something, right? You would either go out and either get another job, work more hours, beg for a raise. You would do something, or
change something with your expenses.
You would substantially cut back your expenses, and you would make very conscious decisions around, we can't afford a $600 a month car payment, we can afford a $200 a month car payment, which obviously is going to impact either the type of car we buy, the age of the car we buy. You're going to make those decisions on a micro level month to month right now. That's exactly what retirement is going to be like.
Right.
It's going to be the same exact conversation. But there's one difference. In retirement, you might run out of money. Right now, you can always keep working. You can always move the cups and the balls around a little bit and try to play a little bit of a game.
Your ability to earn income or to get income could be restricted or eliminated.
Well, it's going to change substantially the older you get, because at some
Exactly.
point, your job at 85 is not, your prospects are different than they were at 65.
Exactly.
Substantially different.
So this whole idea of kind of making ends meet and trying and operating in the green, it starts now, right? And so if in this first point where it says that people need to make some change, it's because A, you're not saving enough money for retirement,
Right.
or B, you're kind of setting yourself up because you're setting yourself where your standard expenses are just going to stay high and too high for you to be able to not work anymore.
Well, you're in for a substantial lifestyle change.
Or to have your income change. Because most people, when you retire, your income's it theoretically could go down, right?
Correct.
You're making more money in your earning years as opposed to maybe that you have in your retirement years. So you get to this point where, okay, so we're spending X and we're spending X and we're making X, so we're kind of just about breaking even. When I retire and my income X goes to W and it drops, but my expenses are still around the same, then you're not going to be able to retire.
Right.
You're not going to be able to do it. And so one of the things that we see now, particularly, this is kind of thrown almost a curveball in this, is kind of this post-COVID, right? So remember in COVID, there was all this kind of relief that came out to a lot of people. So a lot of people needed it. A lot of people got it, and it was just like, it was kind of like a benefit. Like, for instance, like the student loan moratorium, right?
Sure.
Or the student loan payment moratorium, right? So a lot of people aren't paying on their student loans right now. And this is great, right? And a really cool and like nice, financial kicker that they have. but it's not like the loans have gone away. In some cases, some
Maybe
may
you get
go
some
away.
forgiveness. Maybe
Some
you
may.
will, depending on how that shakes out. Yeah.
Some will, but many people won't, right?
That's
So that's almost like an expense that right now I don't have, but it could come back later on. And if you're in this like place where like if you're a parent, you're helping like your kids pay for their student loans, and then for whatever reason they're not in the ability your plan was always, oh, we're going to pay for the kids' student loans.
Right.
And but now we're going to retire. This is maybe another expense that you're not thinking of.
Yeah.
So I do like I like the idea of kind of right now wherever I'm at, whether I'm 25 years old, whether I'm 55 years old, is look at what's my savings capability. What's my income versus my output.
Well, the reason you do this now is because if there are changes that need to be made, they're ideally somewhat manageable, modest changes that need to be made. If it's a lifestyle tweak from a spending perspective, or if it's a savings tweak that needs to be made, needs to save a little bit more, it's a lot easier to do it further out because the adjustments are usually smaller and more manageable, as opposed to, oh, we're retiring next year, we need to save $10,000 a month, $20,000. It's crazy. It just becomes harder to do.
Right. Okay.
Number two, 1 in 5, 20% of folks are in what they call the yellow zone, implying that they're going to have to make some lifestyle adjustments in retirement unless they take concerted action today.
Who wants to be in the yellow zone, right? I mean, that's almost in the red zone.
That's close.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a reason they use the same colors.
So everybody kind of gets it. Like, whoa, slow down, big guy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
As opposed to what many people, when they see the yellow light, they gun it, right?
Gun it, step on it. Yeah, punch it. That's right.
So that's not what we're saying to do right now.
Yeah, well, that's it. If you're in the yellow zone, you shouldn't be punching it. You should be taking a step back.
And so everybody's going to have lifestyle changes, right?
Sure.
There's going to be like natural retirement lifestyle changes, but for the most part, there's not, right? And we say this to our clients all the time. We say, listen, the day before you retire and the day after you retire, there's only one difference, is that for most of the time, you don't have to go to work the next day.
That's right.
Yep. But you still may have bills.
You still get a property tax bill.
You still have. I mean, whatever your bills are. You got to pay electric. You got to buy food. You got to buy gas. You got to kick into your Thursday night poker club. Whatever. Not a whole lot changes, other than the fact that now you have a different. Your work requirements are different.
Yeah, that's right.
And in that respect, maybe your time requirements are different, but it's not a huge change. So if you feel like if you're in this position where, oh yeah, so once I stop working, I'm just going to keep doing everything that I'm doing because that's what I do.
Right.
Your income needs to support it. And now your income is no longer coming from your employer. Your income's coming from your retirement war chest, whatever that entails.
That's made up of, right?
Exactly.
That's right. There could be some Social Security money in there. There could be some pension money in there. There could be some savings in there. All of that has to be factored into whether or not you're now, free of the chains of employment. And now you can go ahead and go about your business. You got to make sure you can afford that business.
Yeah. And the thing is and with all of this stuff, all the stuff that we're going to talk about, this is all stuff that can be identified long before you retire,
that's right.
Or at least discussed. And you may not know the answer. Like we said, you may not know where you're going to live. You may not know where you're going to end up, for whatever. But you're going to know kind of what your general costs are. You're going to be able to set some parameters and say, okay, I'm not going to buy a $3 million house in Nantucket because I know I can't afford that. But I could potentially, if I own a $500,000 house in Milford, Massachusetts, I could move to South Carolina and get something comparable, or maybe do a little better. I know I'm in the same church, right?
Right. Or you know what? I might not want to own, but I want to travel, and I got to build that travel into my budget. And if traveling means we're renting a place someplace south, someplace north, whatever it is, for 2 or 3 months at a time, you got to build that into the process.
Jay just said someplace north. What would I rent for 2 or 3
Where
months
would I go
in the
north?
north?
Good Lord.
So Jay's going to be up in Quebec.
Yep, that's right. That's
All right.
not going to happen. All right, number three. Go ahead.
I don't have it. Oh wait, I know I do have it. Fewer American households are on target to meet all of their essential expenses. Ooh, this is a good one.
Now, we've talked about this before in the show. We're talking essential expenses, right? So when you're doing your retirement income planning, there's a bunch of bills that, whether you like it or not, those got to get paid.
Yep.
Those got to get paid. And they're kind of the important ones, right? Like heat.
They're the ones you know, right?
Property, the ones you're already paying for. Those don't go away.
This isn't like a new thing. Oh no, right? You know, I mean, unless you joined, like, unless you moved to some condo association, you got a condo fee or something. There's something. But these are all costs that you're well aware of. This is how much it costs to live, right? And you know, that's the thing. It costs money to live. So that you're going to have expenses. You're going to have things that you're going to spend your money on. So this right now, you know, according to this study, is that a lot of people, their expenses may be a little bit too high than what they're actually going to be able to handle in retirement. So you need to understand. You need to say, okay, look. And it starts with it's the basic plan. Whenever we talk to anybody about like what's our, you know, what's your, you know, the fundamental financial plan is, we'll say, okay, give me a list of like what your expenses are. And that there, I mean, I can count on one hand the number of my clients that can do it to the penny.
Well, but I mean, that's the thing. You always start there, right? You always start with saying, look, these are the bills that have to get paid in retirement, right? So let's
essential ones.
Let's get a handle on what those look like. Okay, that's great. And then how much money do you have to cover those, right? And then part two is, and then what's your discretionary stuff? And that's where you really, I mean, obviously we've talked about it, that's where you control the whole thing, where if discretionary means we go to the movies once a week and we're homebodies. We don't do a lot, we garden, okay, that's a different animal. Versus we travel a lot, we want to travel a lot, we want to do this, we're bouncing all over the country, bouncing all over the world. Those are different conversations, but you've got some flexibility around that stuff.
You know, and how many times do like you talk to somebody and they're and when you do that essential, like you do that initial essential analysis, and remember right now they're working, I'm in my 50s, I want to retire. You know, they come in with that, like, in my mind, I want to retire at 65.
Yeah.
I want to retire. I start collecting my teacher's pension at 62 or my state police pension. That's my day. That's the day I'm going to retire. And you kind of look at you, and you do the essential expenses. They say, okay, so we have a house in Palmer, Massachusetts, and we also have a house in Key West, Florida. And you say, okay, here's your, you know, and you have 30-year mortgages on each of them.
Yep.
And you say, okay, here's your expenses. And you say, well, wait a minute. Okay, so right now your expenses are, let's make it up. Let's say it's $9,000 a month.
Sure.
Right? And then you're saying, I'm never going to work another day in my life, and I'm a state cop, and I'm getting a great pension, so I'm going to get $10,000 a month, which is, you know, not far off from what these guys get, right?
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, $9,000, $10,000, and this is just the essentials. So that gives you $1,000 per month in order to cover all of the miscellaneous stuff.
Today, that's not including your inflation factors to all of that $9,000 number, which is potentially going to become $10,000 in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
That's right. So you know, even take out inflation, but just $1,000. So once you look at that and you say, well, wait a minute, that's a lot of money. How are you going to be able to do, you know, you're not going to have enough money, because then, you know, do some other math, say, well, food, gas, and if I'm going to travel to this Key West place, or I'm going to, you know, whatever I'm going to do.
There's not a ton of wiggle room.
I'm in the red.
Yeah.
Right, and so, you know, and when you do your retirement planning with your clients, what you want to do, especially if it's time for them to retire, you want wiggle room.
Yes.
You want extra wiggle room.
Yep.
And you want extra wiggle room for all the right reasons, right? You want extra wiggle room because that's, you know, if you're 67 years old, and we say this, you're 67 is going to feel different than 77. So if you're going to do that stuff that you've been working for your whole entire working life in order to retire and enjoy your retirement, while, knock on wood, you still have your health, you know, then you get to that point where you're like, hey, this is the time to do it. You need some buffer. You need money.
And that can be part of your plan. You could do your plan in 5-year increments, 10-year increments. You could say, look, John, I completely agree with you. In 5 years or in 10 years, I'm not going to need to own 2 places. I don't want to own 2 places. I only need 1 place. I might only own 1 place in a year from now. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that's potentially going to put some money on the table, and that's going to help us bridge this gap. Okay, that's a conversation worth having, right? But if it's not that conversation, you say to yourself, $1,000 a month. What am I going to do with $1,000 a month? I'm going to spend that walking from here to Stop and Shop, right? You know, I mean, that's going to go quickly.
Well, because you are going to be walking to Stop and Shop, because you won't have a
car.
Your car will be repossessed. All right, what do you got? Number 4.
Number 4, age-appropriate asset allocations have declined slightly. So what that means is that people have looked at, well, haven't apparently looked at what their asset allocation strategy should look like in light of either, according to this, their own personal retirement situation, and the market's been down, the market's been playing around, the market's been doing crazy things. So you need to really, and if you have a good advisor, like the folks at Manevra Financial, for example, or at Solaris Hill Advisors, you're having this conversation, and you're saying to yourself, all right, do we need to have our asset allocation adjusted in line with where we're at as part of this big planning picture conversation?
Well, and yeah, and this is a, I'm not going to say it's a deep dive, but it's a you know, it's a dive. You need to understand this, and you need to, this is, you know, particularly when people talk about like how I'm going to draw, you know, how my war chest, like my everything that I've saved, how that's going to augment my retirement income, how that's going to be, how that's going to all work out, because oftentimes you'll have people that'll kind of go to, they'll go to kind of both ends of the spectrum. They'll be like, hey, listen, why, you know, the market's up. I see that the market's up. How come that my account is flat, right? How come I only went up 2% when I saw that the Dow Jones went up 10%? And you kind of say, well, listen, remember, you're not invested in the same, you're you know, step for step with the Dow Jones, right? So there's some risk mitigation that's built into your portfolio because of longevity. But then on the flip side of that, when they say, hey, how come my account's down 5% or 10%? You know, I just want to be safe. I don't want to lose any money.
Right.
I don't. So, you know, people that, you know, you understand that, like, there's also going to be, you're going to be invested in things, because remember, your portfolio needs to extend, you know, past 2, 3, 5. It needs to extend your lifetime. So you have to have, so the way your portfolio is constructed, and again, everybody is different, and everybody is unique to your own situation, but you have to understand that, like, your ability to draw income, it has to be able to weather, you know, both good and bad markets.
That's right. That's right.
And some people will be like, well, I want to make more money. Like, I like it when my account goes up. And you're like, yeah, you like it when your account goes up, but in order to do that, you may have to take on more risk than you're willing to, because the flip side of that is your account could go down significantly if the market goes down. And the same thing for the people like, I just want to be safe. I don't want to lose a dime. And you could say, well, we can do that, but here's what's going to happen. Inflation is going to overtake you. Inflation is going to be, so right now, if you buy a car and it costs you $30,000 a year, in 15 years from now, when you're going to need another car, and, you know, by the grace of God, you're still driving and you're still functional, and you need it because you can't be driving a 15-year-old car on the Mass Pike, then guess what? That $30,000 car is not going to cost $30,000 anymore. It's going to cost more because of inflation. So you have to be able to build your portfolio in such, and understand how it works in such a way that it's going to match to what you want to do. So the whole idea of age-appropriate allocation, that's a very, very important thing.
Well, it's important because it's age, and then it's also risk tolerance, and it's also what are you asking the portfolio to do. You've always said your money has to have a purpose, and so those three are built into that asset allocation discussion to see if this is the right place for you to be.
Yeah, so you have to, and you have to know, and it has to get looked at. Like, you have to, it has to be reviewed. It has to be reviewed with respect to, like, what's going on in the stock market and things like that. Like, you have to be able to, you know, like, kind of the current situation, the current, you know, state of affairs in the market.
Yeah. All right, one more, we'll take a quick break. Savings rate, you mentioned it earlier. When in doubt, save. And according to our folks across town, the savings rate sits at 10%, which is below the highly recommended rate.
What do they recommend?
They recommend
for you?
15.
15%.
Yep.
15% of your income goes to savings.
Correct.
Sometimes easier said than done. Sometimes easier said than done.
Understood. But to your point, right? If you know that your current savings rate, if it's under what it should be, the sooner you have a handle on what it should be, the easier it is to make those adjustments. And those adjustments don't have to be all at once. We've talked about this before. You know, if you're under contributing to your 401k by a couple of percentage points, bump it up 1% or 2% a year. You won't even notice it. You'll notice it maybe the first time, and then it just moves into the regular, normal, standard how you handle yourself. So if you're trying to get to a goal, if you're trying to get to, if 15 is your goal, don't go 10 to 15, go 10 to 11.
But also understand that that your savings rate can change from year to year, right? Because of whatever circumstances you're in. So if you have 2 kids in college, do you know anybody who has 2 kids in college?
I know a couple people.
You have 2 kids in college, and you're save. You know, you may not be able to save as much as you had been able to save earlier, and that all builds into the plan, right? So okay, so for this time period, for these 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, I can't save 15% because you know, 11 of that 15% is going to help my kid
right out
pay
the
for
door to a
college,
tuition bill.
right?
Yep.
Or what have you, right? Or you may say, this is, you know, based on my retirement target date, I want to pay off my house at a certain amount of time, or I want to pay off like maybe like an equity line of credit or some debt that I want to alleviate, so I don't have to deal with that anymore. I may not be able to save as much during that time. So that's all built into the plan. So when you say, yeah, I'm absolutely retiring at 65, I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, you just spent the last 8 years putting your 3 kids through college, and you haven't really saved as much as you need to. The 65 is, it may be, unless you're going to really save, like not save 15%, save like 40 or 50%.
Which is a lot. I mean, at some point it just becomes, you can't save 80% of your salary. You just can't do it. It just becomes unworkable. There's too much going on.
Yeah, so the whole, like, you know, time and the ability to kind of meet that, you may have to kick that down the road. You may have to say, look, 65 isn't that's not realistic based on this current savings plan.
Right. And 5 more years of saving and working and income and not, and more importantly, not spending might make a huge difference.
Well, that's it, right? That's the net value of save. All right, we're going to take a quick break.
We get 5 more to go.
Quick break, and we'll get through 5 in the last 5 minutes.
Of course we
can.
can.
All right, we will be. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden, Marsden Law Group, John Drohan, Main After Financial.
Taking
Tom,
pictures.
Steering us through the cosmos here. We're talking about retirement readiness based on a recent quiz that came out from a small mutual fund company across town.
So far, we're 5 for 5.
And we're 5 for 5 on retirement readiness. And we're talking about the pitfalls and things that you should be evaluating as you evaluate your own retirement readiness. So number 6 on our list is, surprisingly, single folks tend to save less than married folks. You know, I don't know if that's because they're out more often during
they're
the
out
week.
ripping it up.
Exactly right. The bar tab the bar tab's way bigger, maybe not as big as yours. You're probably holding your own in that department, but you know, that's the challenge, right? That's the challenge. You know, being single costs money, right?
It costs money, and you know, for the right reasons or the wrong reasons or whatever the reasons. Yeah. So maybe it's a fact of, you know, because you're single, you have more time, or you have less commitments of things that you may do if you have a significant other. But at the end of the day, it becomes, again, this fundamental arithmetic problem of like, look, this is how much I have, this is how much I make, this is how much I save, this is how much this is how much I spend, and you know, the net difference is what I save. And if I'm gonna, you know, if my part of my spending, part of that budget is my entertainment budget, and my entertainment budget is too much, or is kind of digging, you know, too much into my saving, not enabling me to put money into my 401k, or to put enough money into my 401k.
Well, and then it really becomes a lifestyle question, right? I mean,
well, that is, it's a
fundamental. And a lot of it might be that you say to yourself, well, look, you know, if you're a single individual, you think to yourself, all right, I'm not paying for college tuitions. You know, you probably, so you've got different expenses. But the whole analysis is different because you also have more flexibility. You might travel more. You might have different plans in retirement. You may have more options as to when you wrap it up, depending on what your career looks like and things like that. So the considerations are the same. You know, maybe the urgency isn't there because you just sort of figure, well, I'm really planning just for myself, and I have a lot more. But still, you want the same options, right? You want the same flexibility to be able to say, I'm done, I'm wrapping it up when I want to wrap it up, and out the door I go, as opposed to, you know, trying to coordinate some of these other things. The other thing that was important as part of this aspect of retirement readiness was, again, we're seeing the same things, like 50-ish, 56% of people are invested in an age-appropriate asset allocation strategy. That's half. Half the people are lined up correctly, and half of them are not, right? So, and this was the same percentage before. Savings, the savings rate was like 37% of people are close to where they should be, but that means 65% are not, or 63% are not. There's a lot of off there.
I love your lawyer math, right? I mean, he knows this stuff, right? He just has it like off the top. It's 37%. Just so you know, I just happen to know that's one of my things, right? You know what it is?
Your Honor, I submit to the court.
You know what? Your Honor, we have no further questions.
That's right. No further questions for this witness. So dismissive the way you said it.
That's right.
Your Honor, we're done with this witness.
Yeah, with this witness.
Yeah. This one. We have 10 more.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be here all day because we're getting paid by the hour. But anyway. Yep.
There we go.
Yep. So what's your next one? This has been on the show a couple of times. We've talked about it. Everybody forgot about it.
So number 7, more than 8 in 10 fear inflation's bite at retirement. And guess what?
Yeah.
Your fear is well placed.
And guess what they didn't care about 3 years ago? We've talked about this, like, John, really? really 3% analysis for inflation.
Is that really going to be
That's
a big
crazy.
deal?
I mean, I haven't seen
Social
more
Security's going up.
I
So
just
I'll
got a
be fine.
1.1, 1.2. Like, come on, give me a break.
Killing
3,
it.
you're crazy.
Yeah,
You're talking
I'm
about.
killing it.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's 8.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 8. 3, John.
Yeah.
3. Why are you being so conservative, John?
Yeah.
So everyone's learning.
So 8
Inflation's
out
real.
of 10. 8 out of
Inflation's
10.
real.
Yeah, inflation's real, and inflation is and when you talk about and we've said this, with respect to like you're building your portfolio or building your or your retirement plan, is you have to take it into consideration. And what that means is that if you just people who say I don't want to lose any money, I just don't want to lose a dime, and when they say lose money, what they're really saying is I don't want to see my account go down. I don't want to see.
That's right.
I don't want to see the balance. I don't want to see when I get my monthly statement say this is what it was at the end of October and here's what it is at the end of November, and have it be less if I didn't take any money out of it.
Yep.
And that, unfortunately, if you are invested in the market and you are invested in anything that's not just a guaranteed like interest rate or a guaranteed income with no ability to go down, that's an unrealistic expectation. If you're invested in the market, you're always going to assume risk. Now, this is the thing, and if I explain this 3 times a day, sometimes 10 times, 100 times, 50 times, whatever the number is. People got to understand that although I understand that your portfolio it's going to go up and down. It's going to move with the market.
Sure
I
is.
have no
Yep,
I have
to some
no
degree.
way.
Yep.
There's no way I can control what the market's going to do. But what we can control is we can control how much money we take out of it, out of your portfolio. We can control when we take money out of it, and we can control what part of your portfolio we take money out of.
Yes, we
So in the case of, let's say you need to make up a number, $2,000 a month out of your account, right?
Yep.
So if I need to take $2,000 a month out of my account, and let's say the market has a bad month and it drops 22%, right?
Oof.
So let's say my account was at $300,000 and now it's at like $262,000. And you're like, oh my God, it's so much. But oh my God, I have to take $2,000 out because that's the income that I'm taking. Understand that you're not going to take your $2,000 out of what just dropped.
Right.
You're not going to, if you're doing things correctly, you're not selling something that just dropped 22%.
There's some conservative sleeve, if you will.
There's
in
a
your
capability,
portfolio
right?
that you can pull from.
That's right. So now on the flip side, you don't, if you make $38,000 in a month and you take $2,000, you're like, look at me go. Yeah, I'm reaping my winnings.
Yep.
Right. But so it's important to understand that if it's a retirement income portfolio, you're not taking all that money out. So the only time you actually register a gain or a loss is if you sell something.
Lock
right?
in the loss.
Is if you lock in the gain or you lock in the loss. So if it's just if your Apple stock, if you're invested in or in your Fidelity Growth Fund, if your Fidelity Growth Fund was at $10,000 and next month it's at $9,000, but you haven't sold anything.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just that you still own it. You still own all the shares. It's just the value of it has gone down. Just like the value of your house potentially could go down tomorrow because
you're not selling it, doesn't matter.
Because the interest rates go, whatever it is.
Yeah. All right, we got 3 more to go.
Let's
Three
go.
more to go. We're getting close.
We're right on track.
Right, well, just to let you know, you kind of do a spiral.
I was
spiral there. All right. So very few people actually have a written plan. Very few people have a written plan, and that's not unusual. We see that a lot. I think the number is 28% people have a written plan, which means 70 of you don't have a written plan. Which, again, do you have to have a written plan? Doesn't matter what's written on. You write it on a napkin, write it on a piece of paper. You got to write it. There's all kinds of.
Most of Jay's best plans are written on a napkin. Yeah.
back of one of those back of one of those paper placemats. I mean, there's a whole bunch. Coasters. Coasters would be great for writing on. But again,
can I keep this?
You can write it down on a whole bunch of stuff. You can write it down. You can do the back of the napkin math. You can put it on a piece of paper. And again, we talked about earlier. It's just math. What am I spending? What do I need to spend? What would I like to spend? And what do I have for income? And then how do we put that whole thing together and mix it all up so that it works for you, and then it works out in a way that does not create.
But here's one thing to be careful of. One thing when you talk about the written financial plan. Oh, like this finance. So how many times have you seen? All right, here's your financial plan. Mr. Harmon. Good luck. This is going to be great. You're 22 years old. Let's although Tom's a little older than 22, but we're gonna here you go. This is your plan. It's going to take you to retirement, and they give you this 50-page bound in leather plan.
Oh yeah.
And remember the thing about your plan needs to be dynamic. Your plan needs to it needs to be able to,
be open
it needs
to
be
change.
flexible.
Yep.
It's going to change, right?
Yep.
All those and this is why we don't really get so bogged down in the numbers, because the numbers change.
Yeah, it's not a
the
one and
numbers
done.
change every day.
Yeah.
So understand that your plan, it's much more. It's more than, it's not a dollar for dollar. This is what I'm going to save. It's more of like a glide path. It's a lifestyle. It's a plan of what you're going to do and what decisions you're going to make and what decisions you're not going to make financially in order to get you to the place that you want to get to.
You got it. You got it. Two more. Many people expect to work in retirement. We've talked about this on the show a million times. What's your second act look like, right?
Yep.
Some people are going to wrap it up. Some people are going to close the door, and they're never going to step foot anything that even resembles a work environment ever again. And then other people say, look, you know what? I've done X amount for the whole past 30 years of my career, and now I'm wrapping it up and I'm moving on to something else. For a whole host of reasons. Some of them are voluntary. Some of them, unfortunately, people need to work. This is how much people expect to earn in retirement. I think the number was around $1,500, which kind of matches up closely with what a lot of people get for Social Security. But the idea is that a lot of people expect to work in retirement, and that's a part of longevity. That's part of people's willingness to give back and to commit, and they just want to work. They like it and they've loved it and they want to keep doing it.
And it may be okay. It may be just fine, and that may be a great plan. And we've said this before. Like I know plenty of people in retirement that work and love it, and they love the fact that it gives them a purpose. They love the fact that it gives them they stay connected to what they were interested in. Like they could be working with something, they could be doing something that is part of their career. They may be doing something totally different.
Yep.
Right. So for all the right reasons, right, and because they could use the extra money. The other side of that is that if your retirement plan is built where you're expecting that you're going to work, there could be a health situation that you may not be able to work.
Oh my God, that's number 10.
Stop it.
Get out of that.
That's almost like I studied for the quiz.
Oh my God. Number 10 was fewer Americans report being in very good health. Now, that's down from six.
I mean, we're talking about Jay Marsden health. I
No.
Very few Americans are in this level of health.
Tip top level.
Yeah.
69% report very good health, which is down from before the pandemic, was 76. So it's a percentage thing. But the key takeaway from this statistic as part of your retirement readiness is your health. We tell this to everybody who comes in the office when we do legal plans for them. Your health is going to drive the plan.
Everything.
Your health is going to drive the plan. So
it's what's going to matter.
So hopefully you're listening to this show on your headphones while you're out for a walk or on the treadmill or on the bike or on the rowing machine.
On the rail trail.
Or on the elliptical.
Who's not on the rail trail at 11 o'clock?
But that's the idea. The idea is, and your health is important because you know what? It's a huge expense when you get into retirement. It's probably about a $250,000-ish expense in retirement, according to that small shop across town. And it's worthy of making sure that you plan for it. Whether you plan for it through an HSA, most people are going to look at Medicare as their primary source of health insurance, and then they're going to buy a supplemental policy. That's a bill that you're not paying right now that you're going to have to incorporate into your retirement plans. But your health is key. The best thing you can do is obviously try to manage that frailty and make some okay decisions, different than the one John makes, better decisions than that. Life's not one gigantic French fry. You got to figure it out a little bit.
You know what? If they're homemade French fries, sometimes you know what? I'll just have two.
All right, So there you go, America. There's your retirement readiness, brought to you by Jay and John. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that puts everybody in the right
ready.
frame of mind. We should know
Everybody's
where
ready.
you are from a retirement readiness perspective. I will not be here next week, so we will probably be running a
We may be running this one again. You may get to hear it twice.
Be twice as ready. Maybe twice as ready.
All right. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the weather as the weather starts to break. I feel
Go
like
Sox.
I feel like it's happening. Go Red Sox. Enjoy baseball with the new rule change, which I think it's going to be fantastic. Bigger bases in the pitch clock. All right. We'll see everybody next week. Tom, we'll see everybody, or not next week, the following week.
Following week.
Be good and save your money.
Have a great week.